I have the pleasure of having Justin Patterson with us today. He's running for Monterey County Sheriff, and he's agreed to answer some questions. Justin, you have spent 21 years in law enforcement. Can you tell us more about the experience, background, and training that qualifies you to be Monterey County Sheriff?
I sure can. I've been a sheriff's deputy for Monterey County for 21 years, all with Monterey County. I haven't worked for any other agencies. Prior to that, I put myself through the academy as opposed to getting hired on in law enforcement by somebody and having them put me through the academy. I felt that was important to show that I had the aspiration to do the job. While working with Monterey County Sheriff's Office, I started out in the county jail. I did 2.5 years there where I was a training officer and trained many of the deputies and sergeants that we have now, some that are even commanders. I did nearly 14 years on the SWAT team, Sheriff's Office SWAT team. I've been to SWAT school, learned an incredible wealth of knowledge there that enabled me to take on leadership roles within the SWAT team and help, do many missions which are intricate and take a lot of time to plan. I was a canine handler, which was 2 6-week school, one for narcotics at a narcotics detection dog, which I worked very closely with the FBI, DEA. They called on my dog a lot to help, many of their issues that they had with, finding narcotics and money, drug money and such. My dog was also trained another 6 weeks in find and apprehension. So they find a suspect that would take off from us, run from us, hide from us, many different realms that they would do. But that required one of the hardest parts of my entire career in knowing how to manage a scene. As a canine handler, we had to manage our scenes. You couldn't have a sergeant come in or a commander come in. Once you've turned the scene over to the canine and his handler, that's, it's his scene. He managed it. Sergeants don't tell you what you can and cannot do because you're responsible for the actions of that dog. That managing is what has allowed me to learn a lot of leadership roles in the sheriff's office and how they're worked to the benefit of the department and the community. While I've worked for the sheriff's department, during my 21 years there, I put myself through school. I ended up with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice management, which also makes me qualified for this position as qualified as anybody else.
How would you evaluate the outgoing administration of Sheriff Steve Burnell? What has he done right and what has he done wrong?
Sheriff Burnell started off his 8 years in the sheriff's office as sheriff by bringing in some very good upper management people. And I would say that was the first thing that he did right in his 8-year administration. He brought in Galen Bonner and Tracy Brown to the sheriff's office. Tracy Brown as chief deputy of patrol and Galen Bonner as the undersheriff. Galen Bonner had a massive amount of career with San Bernardino Sheriff's Office, but prior to that he worked with us. So he had some history with our sheriff's department. Tracy Brown was a retired commander with our sheriff's department. The people of the community, as well as many of the people of the department, supported that decision and were very comfortable with that decision. It got us off in a very good direction with the sheriff's office. And unfortunately, based on those two people I've talked to, over the years, both are supporting me for sheriff, they said that they couldn't work with Steve. His ego got too big. He got to the point where it was his way or the highway, and he wasn't listening to the experience that was there. Steve didn't have the experience. Steve was a patrol deputy in his career and didn't promote within the ranks. And a lot of people can say that about myself. However, at least I've been on the SWAT team. I've had K9. I've had many different assignments in the sheriff's office where he just doesn't have that. And he let his ego get the best of him. And I think had he backed that ego off and worked with those two gentlemen, our department would be a much better place than it is right now. And as far as the things that he's done wrong, we had the whole CSSA. We brought in the sheriffs from all over the county and used department funds to wine and dine all the sheriffs across the state, where we're hurting in many other ways in our department. Our patrol is completely depleted. In 2002, we came out with 135 deputies on the streets. And that goes for all 3 stations. We have Monterey Station, substation, we have the King City substation, we have the Central Patrol out of Salinas. 135 deputies patrolled the streets and protected the people of Monterey County and provided a level of service that was needed. And now we're looking at, we have around between 57 and 60 bodies patrolling the streets of Monterey County right now. And that does not provide the level of service that Monterey County needs.
How would a Patterson administration run the sheriff's office different from Burnell?
Well, number one, I'd probably bring in some similar people that how Burnell started his career as sheriff. I already spoke with Galen Bonner and discussed possibly coming in as a transition team. Fred Garcia, retired commander with the sheriff's office, has offered to come in and assist with the transition team and getting us in the right direction. And when I say the right direction, one of the things that we get complaints from all our deputies and even our sergeants, is the lack of bodies that we have on the streets. If you want to look from the top down in our sheriff's office, we have far too many commanders, far too many sergeants right now. Is it important to have these people? Absolutely. But right now we need to focus the level of service to the people in our community. Our crime is skyrocketing, and we're not really doing anything about it. We try to get people out of the jail and get them trained, but as soon as we get these people out of the jail and get them trained, we're losing people to other agencies, or we're losing people to just retirement or injury, and it's just not fast enough. The recidivism is, we're just losing the battle on that. And we've been losing that since the last year with Cantalakis when he was the sheriff. We need to refocus that, look at the command staff, the sergeants, and decide, we make the hard decision and roll some of these things back just to get the bodies back on the streets until we can build back up again. And one of those things I plan on doing is hiring directly to patrol and getting bodies on the streets. You know, it's unfortunate that we have to do that, but with the jail, it takes too long to get that body from the start of the time they go through the academy, they get hired by the jail, start in the jail, work their time in the jail. We're looking 3 or 4 years before we see these bodies on the streets. And for the people of Monterey County, they deserve bodies on the streets, not right now, not yesterday, not 10 years ago. We need them right now to protect the people of Monterey County.
I've noticed that the new county jail has just opened rather suddenly after you made it a campaign issue. Any comments on that?
Well, to be fair, from what I'm told, the fire marshals have kept that from being opened. We had a fire marshal who was there, and apparently he retired, and everything was going smooth until the new fire marshal came in and said, hey, we have all these other issues, you can't open until you fix these issues. But to say that took from 2018 till now, to me is all about bureaucracy. It's all about politics. And I'm sure you can see by how I talk, I'm not a politician. I'm a guy that rolls up my sleeves, gets in the mix, and tries to fix things. This is something where, Steve Burnell, Joe Moses, who's the captain of the jail, he's in charge of these things and should be on these things. This should have been sitting down with that guy at a table. What has to be done? How quickly can we do it? Because this is needed for the community. We need a new facility. Our other facility's falling apart. It should not have taken an extra 4 or 5 years to get done.
People don't feel safe in their communities with politicians trying to defund law enforcement or left-wing DAs refusing to prosecute crimes. What can you do to restore a sense of public safety in Monterey County?
Well, first off, public safety, it goes back on getting bodies on the streets. We've got to increase the number of bodies on the streets. 57, 58 people that we have right now is not enough. We need to go back to the times where we had well over 90 people. Are we going to get the 135? Well, that's going to be a fight with the county council. But if we make it known to the people in the community how many bodies, how many deputies they have working their streets and how long it takes to get to them, we will get that change, and we'll get pressure on county council to give us the numbers and the money to provide that, to get deputies on the streets again. We are in a position where right now people go a day or two sometimes before they get contact from a deputy. Now granted, that might be a non-life-threatening call, but they still deserve a service because the sheriffs are responsible for providing that service to them. You vote that person in to provide that service. He's not just him that's working for them, the sheriff working for those people. It's the deputies that are working for these people. And they deserve that response in a timely manner as opposed to waiting a day that, hey, our car got broke into or whatever. There's too much going on. There's too much crime just ravaging Monterey County, and it's not being talked about in the media. I want to bring it to the forefront. If we have to use social media to talk about that and show that to the people are going to be the ones that contact the county supervisors and go, hey, we need our sheriff to have the funds to do this. And there's also an entire budget that needs to be looked at and gone down from top to bottom. The budget right now is around $130 million. And you can't tell me that we can't, look at that and start cutting some things out to provide that service to the people. And then it comes to management and morale of the sheriff's department. To get these deputies to go out and do a job, the morale has to be good in the sheriff's office. You can't expect a bad morale in the sheriff's department and then have your deputies run around and do what you ask of them. They're just like anybody else. They're human beings. You provide them a place to work where they're happy and provided the proper training, the proper equipment, the proper knowledge that they need to be on the streets so we're not sued all the time. They need that knowledge, and that comes with training. And we have a lack of training in the sheriff's office. We're behind what we're supposed to have. We got a guy that's up in training that's trying desperately to try and catch us up. We got over 350 sworn deputies that he's got to catch up. And that takes a lot of time and effort, and that's going to take somebody that's really willing to roll up their sleeves, get in there and work with others instead of just trying to be a public figure or a figurehead. We can't have a figurehead in the sheriff's office anymore. We need somebody that's going to step up and be involved. And not just at the sheriff's office. That person needs to be willing to get into the community and find out what the community problems are. Homelessness, huge issue in our county. Also, most of our crime is coming from these people because they're trying to provide, a lot of times, their drug habit. There's some mental issues that go with that and all that. But we need somebody that's willing to get in there and get a group of people that are willing to work at the problem at its core and be willing to go out to the community members, whether they like us or not, and say, hey, what can we do to fix this? Somebody that's willing to reach across the table. I'm much, myself, I'm much of a Knights at the Round Table type of mentality, where I don't pretend that I know everything in the room. We all have something to provide and offer. If we can get everybody at the table and figure out a problem, all the community leaders together, we can actually work through some of these issues that are plaguing our county.
What is your stand on CCWs?
I'm a firm believer in our constitutional rights and the people of Monterey County and the state of California. I'm a firm believer in their constitutional rights. Regardless of your left or right, you have constitutional rights that are afforded to you by the Constitution of the United States and our Bill of Rights. CCW is not just something to protect yourself with. It's something to protect yourself from the government when it becomes tyrannical, in my opinion, the way it's become recently. Politicians work for you, the people, not for themselves. And we've gotten to an era where we are in the United States right now where these politicians are telling us what to do. We need to be in an era where we know that we're the ones telling the politicians what to do because they're employed by us. And that goes for me. I'm employed by, if I get elected, God chooses this path for me and I become the Monterey County Sheriff, I'm going to go through everybody that asks for that CCW. And I'm going to make sure anybody that's qualified and has a legal right to do so will be able to carry a firearm in Monterey County. A lot of people question that and say, well, why? We're putting more guns on the street. Isn't gun crime going up? Well, actually, yeah, gun crime's going up in all the areas that we have gun-free zones. Gun crime's going up in all the areas where we have leaders that are stripping everybody of their right to carry a gun. But where it's not going up? In areas where that's not the fact. In areas where we have Texas and Florida, people don't get robbed there nearly as often as they do here in even Salinas or Monterey or anywhere else. Carjackings are happening and starting on the rise. We need to protect the people of Monterey County, and to do that, yes, we need more cops on the streets, but you know what else we need? We need more first responders. In my belief, it's my belief that sheriff's deputies, police officers, firefighters, we're not true first responders. The true first responder is the person that we're going to protect, the person that we're being called to help. You're your own first responder in the aspect that we're not going to be there right now. We're going to be there in a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, however long it takes from wherever we're located in the county. So that person has a legal right to protect their freedoms. They have a legal right to protect their life. The Penal Code of the State of California says you have a right to protect yourself from imminent danger. And we have an evil in this country that people don't want to turn a blind eye to that's there. It's not going away. It's always going to be there. That's why we have a need for law enforcement. That's why we don't want to defund the police, because we got to make sure that the police have the capabilities to assist you in whatever way they can. But again, when it comes to CCWs, people should have that right to protect themselves against any enemy. And if we take away that right, they become a victim.
Just expanding on the previous question, how do you feel the actions of the federal and state governments, especially regarding COVID, are taking away people's rights and liberties?
Well, this is where politicians have decided that they know what's best for you and your family. And I am completely disagreement with that. You know, COVID, for instance, there's people being forced to get a vaccination, you know, against their will just to be able to work and provide for their family. You know, we've now moved from a country where we are supposed to be able to move freely about to a country where, nah, it's not okay if you do that. Matter of fact, we're going to fire you. You know, that's absolutely absurd. You know, many people have talked to their own doctors, they trust in their own doctors, and their doctors say, no, you don't need this, you already had COVID. You know, we should not be, as politicians, telling people what they should and should not take into their own bodies. That goes against our Constitution, goes against our Constitution to its core. You know, politicians have forgotten that we work for you. They are forgetting that, and they're getting to the point where they're telling you what you should and should not do. I'm going to tell you, as a sheriff, I will fight tooth and nail if any politician, governing like that says, hey, we need to shut you down because you're not essential. How can you tell me or your family that you're not essential? We're all essential. We're all people. And we have that right to exist as a free people in the United States of America, as well as Monterey County and the state of California. You know, politicians should not be telling us what to do. They need to stop that and start looking back to the people and serving the people that voted them into office.
You touched on this before, but Monterey County has a serious homeless problem. Is there anything the sheriff's office can do to address it?
It's a hot topic because it's a huge issue in our community as well as it is the state of California. The biggest problem, my belief, the biggest problem became with AB 109 and Proposition 47 that was pushed by politicians to decrease the amount of people we have in the prison system. And what that did, basically, a lot of people don't understand when they were told to vote yes by their unions or by whatever the TV's telling you. They understand what that really meant was we're kicking out all these criminals out of the prison and we're going to put them on the streets and we're not going to rearrest them unless they really offend in a way that we feel it's a violent felony. Well, Proposition 47 made all narcotics misdemeanors to possess. It made it to where we're supposed to cite instead of arrest. So when we cite them and take their narcotics away from them, they get to go right back to the streets, and this is why we have such a high crime rate, and then they go steal from somebody else to provide for their habit. Their family, unfortunately, has turned their backs on them, and they've turned their backs on them because they've become thieves to support their habit. And there is a mental health aspect to it as well sometimes. Most of it starts with narcotics, but there are some people that just have mental health that just don't have the capabilities of getting along with people. But to do something from the Sheriff's Department standpoint, I think the best thing that we can look at is, once again, sitting around that round table with the community leaders. We are about to vacate a very large jail that can be retrofitted. Let's retrofit it. Let's sit with the community leaders. Let's retrofit that jail. Let's make it to where they're not, kept there, because we can't put them in jail in a jail and say, hey, you can't leave. That takes away their rights to the free movement, just like we already discussed. Let's allow them to come and go as they please in a jail, but have deputies on scene, have mental health come in and check on them whenever they're willing to talk to mental health, get them on the proper medication to help them, get through the issues that they're having. The ones that are on narcotics, give them the opportunity to, hey, we have, some counselors over here that will help you quit this narcotic. They have to want to, and that's the hardest part of that. But by allowing them a place to stay, it gets them off the streets, it gets them out from under our underpasses, it gets them out of our levees, and it offers something more, because unfortunately, most of the homeless places that provide shelter for them across the county, unfortunately, only allow a wife and their children, or only allow, a certain amount of people in that, and the families that are affected by it don't have the whole opportunity to go there. So we have to have try and look for an area where we can provide some sort of room for them to go and get off the streets. Again, it's going to take a group of people to figure out how to do that, how to retrofit that jail to do it. But we can look at that on day one and start working towards that to provide something different. San Luis Obispo County did for a while. They provided a whole piece of property with, hookups, trailer hookups, cabins, all this stuff, places where they could put a tent in one area to where it got them on their feet. They provided mental health. They provided medical for them where they had it. And a lot of people say, well, where are we going to get the funding for that? We're already paying for it. We're already paying for their mental health. They go on 5150s all the time. They go, when a homeless person is feeling sick, they call for an ambulance. And we send an ambulance out to get them, and they take them to the hospital, and they try and help them get through, and they go right back to the streets. So the hospitals, I'm pretty confident, and the supervisors are going to be on board with something like that, because we can keep the money in one area and work on helping that group of people get back on their feet if they're willing to do it. But it does have to come from a willingness from them. But if we show that we care, I think that more people will take on that, yeah, I want to get help. I want to get off the streets.
Are there any other major issues you would prioritize if you are elected?
Biggest issue we have right now is patrol. We have got to get more deputies on the streets to provide the level of services needed for the county. Another issue, right now, we have too many sergeants, too many commanders. Right now, does that mean that I don't want to get back to that at some point again? Yeah, but once we have the bodies on the streets again. The other thing is morale within the department. These deputies, sergeants that are working are not what I would call the go-getters that we used to be. The go-getters that go out and hunt for criminals. We have a criminal element on the streets that need to be addressed. And a lot of people say, why would you say hunt? Because that's their job, is to go out and try and protect you. That means out in the middle of the night looking for people that are doing bad things, that are robbing people and all that. Our deputies are so deflated that there's only so many of them on the streets that they realize that it's even more dangerous for them to go out and look for this element, this criminal element that's out there, that's always going to be out there. But if we put more cops on the streets to assist them, they feel more comfortable because they feel safer. I want to look at the possibility of putting 2 deputies in each car for right now, because we're so short. Putting 2 deputies in each car when we get into fights or anything like that, when people challenge us, is something it's protected for the deputy. It's also protection for the criminal element. When they see that there's 2 deputies coming, they're less likely to run. They're less likely to fight because they don't want to do that. We have to look at every aspect of this department and make it better for the community, better for the people of Monterey County, and provide a level of service that they feel comfortable with. The county needs to be able to feel, and the people of Monterey County need to be able to feel that they can go to their sheriff and go, hey, what do we have to do to make this street safer? And we can tell them, hey, we got to put more people on the streets. And they'll call their county supervisor and say, hey, this is what needs to be done. And that's going to be the biggest fight, is the county supervisors. It's my belief that not just the Monterey County supervisors, but the state of California has been defunding us for a long time, before it became defund the police a popular term. We need to get out to the community and let them know that that's what's been happening. And this is what you have now versus what you used to have. And we have more people in the community now than we used to have, with less cops patrolling. The whole thing needs to be revamped. The command staff down needs to be revamped. I know that it's going to upset a lot of people in that command staff, sergeant above. Well, you're taking away, our pay or what. That's not what we're looking to do. We're putting more people on the streets for a safety purpose, for not only our deputies, but for the people of Monterey County. And that needs to be focused on and started on from day one.
Is overtime still bleeding the budget because you are so short-staffed?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Any idea what those numbers are?
Not off the top of my head. I just know that we'll take investigations. We haven't talked about that, much. We have a very small investigations group. We have 3 investigative sergeants up there, and I believe 11 detectives. Back in 2003, 2004, I believe there was 45 to 50 detectives. And I believe it was 3 sergeants as well at that time. So you have these sergeants doing the detective work as well as the detectives. They're shorthanded, they're short-staffed, just like patrol. So we have to figure out a way to amp that up. You got these detectives turning in huge overtime slips because that's all they're doing. They're going investigating all the high-profile crimes that we're having throughout the county. And these are not, hey, write one-page reports. These guys are, listening to, phone call interviews, doing interviews all the time, and then they have to write it down. The thing with a cop, we're short storytellers. You tell me something that happened, I have to put down what you said on paper, and then we have to present it to the DA's office. So as far as overtime right now, and it being such a huge problem, it's not going to go away till we get more bodies on the streets. But even then you have to pay for that body. So you have to try and figure out the offset, and that comes with statistics and mathematics and all that stuff.
Right.
So we have to figure out how many bodies can we get and reduce the overtime, but at the same time not spend so much that we can't afford it as a county. We do have to work within a budget. That budget right now, around $130 million. I'd like to see it go more because right now inflation is just killing everybody, the Sheriff's Department included.
Finally, what specific qualities make you the best choice for Monterey County Sheriff in 2022?
Of the 4 candidates, I believe there's 4, they started out with 5. I think I'm the best choice for a couple different reasons. The biggest reason being my ego. You've got 2 chiefs from 2 other agencies that are running with 33 plus years of experience. They have enough to retire. They have enough to move on with their lives or stay where they're at if they're happy. They do not know Monterey County Sheriff's Office. They want to come get to know it and run the Sheriff's Department as they see fit. Sheriff's Department's a lot different than a police department. Tremendously different. We do things differently. We handle rural where they're handling city. So there's a lot of different training experience that I have that they don't have that is focused on that rural area. We need to have cops. We need to have cops on the street. We need to get along with people. We need to get along with everybody. It doesn't matter their race, gender, color, or anything like that. We need to be able to go out in the community and make the community feel safe. And that goes for anybody. It's Democrat, Republican, Independent. It doesn't matter who you are. The job of the sheriff is to make sure that your constitutional rights are not trampled upon. The sheriff allowed this, Sheriff Burnell allowed the state of California to dictate to his patrons, all these businesses, to shut them down because they're non-essential. We need a sheriff that's not going to do that. We need a sheriff that's going to put his foot down and say, get out of my county, you're not welcome here. We are going to protect the people based on how we feel to protect them. And that's the type of sheriff I will be.
Well, thank you very much for answering these questions today, and best of luck on your campaign.
Thank you.